let's do some paper 2 revision. This one's going to be on Bristol, but environmental opportunities. That's an area most people need to try and remember. Okay, we need to understand that in Bristol is one of the most congested cities in the country because there's so many people there, so many people getting to work. Most of the roads are congested, and that obviously leads to huge amount of air pollution. So how do we find that environmental opportunity? So the environmental opportunity found in Bristol is the ITS system, which stands for Integrated Transport System. Integrated means like something that's joined together. Now, you need to understand that actually Bristol, they never had an integrated transport system. They'd have like one bus that would run and it wouldn't be easily connected to other parts of the city very easily. And now what they've done is they've introduced a system of where there's different modes of transport. Modes obviously mean like, we've got buses and trains that can easily kind of connect their routes. For example, you see these different colored lines. They're easily now connecting with each other, so people can get off here and then easily take another bus to get to parts of the city. And therefore, all of them stop at the kind of train stations. So actually, because they're better connected now, you might get a reduction in air pollution. In other words, people are less likely to use their cars because the transport has improved. So please remember that. Look at this definition. It's when they combine their routes, like buses and trains, to make a single network, and that makes it easier to commute and travel. So like I said earlier, the different colored, can you see the different colored routes? They look like they've all connected with each other, and they've done that on purpose, making it more interconnected. And if you mention that and you link it, that actually this reduces the amount of people using cars and more people using public transport, that will obviously reduce the amount of kind of like, let's say, exhaust fumes, because there'll be less cars on the road. So make sure you say that actually more people are going to rely on public transport now. There'll be less CO2 emissions. That will improve air quality, helping the environment. And actually people can get to work quicker because there'll be less traffic. So there'll be less delays for businesses and commuters. Obviously talk about more than one environmental opportunity, and that one could be urban greening. As you can see in the photo, what is urban greening? It's literally just creating more green spaces, planting more trees in urban areas, so city areas like Bristol. And you need to remember some stats. For example, Bristol has over 400 parks and 8 nature reserves. And they also kind of launched some scheme called Replant Bristol, which they want to plant over 250,000 trees by 2030. Now you've just got to learn some waffle, like how do I talk about that in a good way, and how is that good for the environment and the people? We're going to look into that now. So when you explain it, you need to talk about the benefits of urban greening. For example, the first one is the most obvious one. If you're going to have way more green spaces and plant way more trees, the massive benefit to an urban area is obviously increasing more wildlife, and that obviously creates lots of new habitats for wildlife. There's been an increase in lots of birds into the area and hedgehogs, and that improves, let's say, the kind of like diversity in the area. That improves, let's say, the kind of like natural sustainability element to a city, and it's not just like a huge concrete jungle. Another thing you could mention is obviously that will obviously help massively towards climate change, as trees act as carbon sinks, they absorb CO2. So you could talk about in that sense. Don't just talk about one thing, add another quick line to it. They love that. You could also talk about flooding. That actually, remember, trees, green areas are permeable surfaces. Having these green areas absorb more rain for reducing the risks of floods. And lastly, if you don't need to know the fourth one, but you could talk about that, actually having more green spaces helps people socially, in the sense of more outdoor areas for picnics, sports and exercise, and that kind of creates more recreational opportunities.